In another part of the battlefield, while the Saiyans of Universe 6 continued their clash, the Namekians Saunel and Pirina were engaged in combat against the magic fairy Lilibeu and the Prince of Universe 10 Jirasem. So far, their battle had been evenly matched. Pirina demonstrated a straightforward fighting style, relying on powerful melee strikes and heavy ki attacks. Using the natural durability and regenerative abilities of a Namekian, he fought aggressively, constantly pushing forward and forcing his opponent onto the defensive. Jirasem was the one who met him head-on. In contrast to Pirina's relentless offense, the prince relied on precision, focusing on evasive maneuvers and carefully timed counterattacks. Meanwhile, Saunel had shifted his attention toward Lilibeu. From the very beginning of the fight, the fairy had been bombarding the battlefield with offensive magic spells aimed at the Namekians. Her magic missiles relentlessly pursued their targets, homing in on the Namekians wherever they moved. The spells did not affect Jirasem at all, allowing her to attack freely without worrying about harming her ally. While the missiles themselves were not overwhelmingly powerful, they were more than enough to disrupt the Namekians' movements and create openings for Jirasem to exploit. However, maintaining the endless stream of magical projectiles required Lilibeu's full concentration, leaving her completely defenseless while casting the spell. Recognizing the threat her magic posed, Saunel decided to confront her directly. Against a mage, the Namekian believed he had the advantage. Saunel formed a blade of ki in his hand and dashed toward Lilibeu. The fairy reacted immediately, attempting to halt his advance with telekinesis. For a brief moment, Saunel's body froze in place mid-charge, but the Namekian quickly powered up, revealing that he possessed telekinetic ability of his own. With a surge of energy, he broke through her hold, catching Lilibeu off guard. In a single swift motion, Saunel slashed downward with his ki sword, seemingly cutting the fairy cleanly in half. Yet, even as his blade passed through her body, Saunel's instincts told him something was wrong. Without hesitation, he turned and fired a ki blast toward an empty spot nearby. The explosion disrupted the illusion, forcing Lilibeu to reveal herself as her invisibility spell collapsed. "I can see through your spells," Saunel said calmly. "Sneaking up on me won't work." Lilibeu's face showed clear nervousness. Unlike many of the warriors present in the tournament, she was not an experienced fighter. Seeing her attacks dismantled so effortlessly by Saunel, while also worrying about letting down her teammates, caused her anxiety to grow rapidly. Using telepathy, she sent a silent message to Jirasem. It was time to move to the next phase of their plan. While still holding Pirina at bay, Jirasem immediately responded. The prince abruptly halted the flow of combat and activated his unique ability, plant manipulation. With a quick, subtle movement of his hand, Jirasem generated several strange seeds and tossed them toward Pirina. Sensing energy from his opponent's hand, the Namekian instinctively raised his arms to block, expecting a powerful ki blast. Instead, the seeds simply struck his arms and stuck to his skin. Pirina frowned in confusion. "What are these seeds?" He tried to pull them off, but they clung tightly to his body. Ignoring them for the moment, Pirina refocused on Jirasem and rushed forward again, but the prince only smiled. "You shouldn't ignore those seeds." With a simple gesture of his hand, he gave the command, Immediately, the seeds began to grow. They pulsed with energy, swelling rapidly before cracking open. Within moments, thick green sprouts burst out, vines spiraling wildly as they expand at an unnatural speed. Before Pirina could react, the vines wrapped tightly around his arms and torso, restraining him in place. The plants continued growing, their roots forcing their way beneath his skin. Thin tendrils pierced into his flesh, anchoring themselves as they began feeding on his ki. Saunel quickly sensed his friend's distress through their telepathic link. Turning away from Lilibeu, he rushed to help Pirina. Meanwhile, with the opening created, Jirasem moved toward his ally. He immediately noticed the nervous expression on Lilibeu's face. "I can see you're struggling to focus on the battle," Jirasem said. "I'm sorry, I just need a moment to calm myself," Lilibeu replied apologetically. Jirasem placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Unlike the rest of their team, he had known Lilibeu long before the tournament preparations began. He understood how difficult these high-pressure situations could be for her, which was precisely why they had been paired together. "Use that ability of yours on me," Jirasem said gently. "It will help you steady your mind." "I shouldn't rely on that just to be useful," Lilibeu replied with hesitation. "Don't worry," Jirasem said with confidence. "This is a team effort. Relying on your allies is only natural." Though still uncertain, Lilibeu nodded. There was no time to hesitate. She placed her hand on Jirasem's shoulder and began casting her spell. Members of Lilibeu's fairy species possessed unique magical abilities, but they were also highly empathetic beings. As a result, their powers were often connected to emotional and mental states. Lilibeu herself possessed magic far beyond most fairies. The only thing that limited her potential was her naturally timid and peaceful personality. Through her ability, she synchronized her emotional state with Jirasem's own. As the spell took effect, her anxiety faded away, replaced by the prince's calm confidence. "Are you ready now, Lilibeu?" Jirasem asked. "Yes," she replied with a determination unlike her usual. Meanwhile, the Namekians had not been idle. Saunel's first attempt to free Pirina involved cutting the vines with his keyblade, but the plants regenerated almost instantly. The two quickly adapt. Pirina used his Namekian ability to grow in size, expanding his body until the vines restraining him began to crack. With a powerful surge of strength, he ripped the plants away from his body, tearing out their roots completely. Without a source of energy to feed on, the plants immediately withered and stopped growing. Saunel examined the remains carefully. These plants absorb the vital energy of living beings, he concluded. As long as they keep feeding, they will continue growing. He turned to Pirina. "Next time those seeds appear, destroy them immediately." With that, the Namekians prepared themselves to resume the battle against Lilibeu and Jirasem. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the battlefield, Frost had already been confronted by one of Universe's 10 most skilled fighters, Obuni. From the start, the battle had been particularly difficult for Frost. His opponent demonstrated exceptional martial skill combined with a unique technique that made him extremely difficult to damage. Obuni possessed precise control over the flow of his ki. Whenever he prepared to strike, he would concentrate his energy into his fists and legs, dramatically increasing the power of his attacks. At the same time, he could instantly redirect that energy to other parts of his body to defend against incoming blows, greatly reducing the damage he received. In close combat, Frost quickly found himself at a disadvantage. Recognizing this, he changed tactics. Creating distance between himself and Obuni, Frost unleashed a rapid barrage of ki blasts, filling the area with explosions and smoke. Seeing Obuni seemingly caught in the attacks, Frost continued firing mercilessly, wave after wave of energy blast raining down on his opponent. But it was all part of Obuni's strategy. By manipulating the internal flow of his vital energy, Obuni altered the pattern of his ki signature. Not only did this make his movements harder to predict, but it also allowed him to create mirage-like copies of his presence. The figure trapped within Frost's barrage was nothing more than a decoy, concealing his true ki signature. Obuni slipped through the battlefield unnoticed, using the smoke and debris created by Frost's own attacks as cover. Then, moving with incredible speed and stealth, he appeared directly behind Frost. In an instant, Obuni focused his ki into his fist and launched a powerful strike. Frost suddenly felt the surge of energy behind him. Reacting quickly, he turned and raised his arms to block the attack. But once again, Obuni used a ki feint. The sudden shift in energy flow caused Frost to misread the strike completely. Obuni's fist slammed directly into Frost's stomach. The warrior from Universe 10 followed up immediately, unleashing a rapid melee assault. Frost struggled to regain his composure, managing to block and evade just enough of the blows to avoid serious injury, though he was unable to mount any meaningful counterattack. But that had never been his intention. During the brief exchanges where Frost managed to block Obuni's strikes, he subtly extended the small, nearly invisible needles hidden within his hands. With several quick movements, he pierced Obuni's arms multiple times. It did not take long for the poison to take effect. Obuni's body suddenly stiffened as the toxin began spreading through his system, paralyzing his muscle. Frost stepped back with a satisfied expression. "You are quite the troublesome fighter," Frost said coldly. "It will be better to finish this quickly." He began charging a concentrated ki wave in his hand. "This attack might not be strong enough to defeat you, but it will certainly be enough to knock you out of the arena. You are finished." Frost fired the blast directly at the immobilized warrior. Obuni could not even respond. The poison had already begun affecting his ability to move and even to speak. But poison was something Obuni had faced before. Just as the blast reached him, Obuni forced his body to move. With great effort, he caught the incoming energy with both arms. Then, channeling his ki once again, he struck the attack with a powerful enhancing punch, redirecting the blast back toward Frost. Frost reacted instantly, not only dodging his own reflected attack. How? Frost wondered, though he quickly forced himself to remain calm. His opponent was proving far more difficult than he had anticipated. If this had been the Frost of the past, he would have already lost his composure. Obuni slowly regained control of his body as the poison was forced out through his precise energy control. Using poison, the method of a deceiver, Obuni said sternly, but I should have expected such disgraceful tactics in a tournament like this. Frost smirked. Perhaps you should blame the organizers for allowing any fighting method, he replied mockingly. Obuni frowned. I have no intention of debating honor with someone like you. Well, I never claimed to be an honorable warrior like yourself, fighter of Universe 10, Frost replied with a cold chuckle. Obuni steadied his stance. I can control my internal energy, and with that, I can purge any poison from my body if necessary. Your tricks will not defeat me. If you wish to win, you will have to do so properly. Frost's smile slowly widened. In that case, he said, his voice dripping with menace. Allow me to do just that. Frost shifted his posture and began powering up for the next phase of the battle. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the rest of Universe 6 continued their respective battles. While Dr. Rota focused on restoring his stamina and treating his wounds, Magetta and Bota-Mo were confronting the leader of Team Universe 10, Rubalt, and along with a seasoned war veteran known as Jim. To maximize their defensive potential, the two Universe 6 fighters had combined their abilities into a coordinated formation. By sitting on Magetta's shoulder, Bota-Mo and the Metal Man executed the Bota-Magetta combination. In this formation, Bota-Mo took on a purely supportive role. He acted as a living shield, protecting Magetta from Jim's long-range attack, while the Metal Man focused entirely on battling Rubalt in close combat. Thanks to a newly learned technique taught by Dr. Rota during their preparation for the tournament, Bota-Mo could now share his immense defensive ability with anyone he touched. As long as he remained in contact with Magetta, the Metal Man inherited Bota-Mo's nearly indestructible durability. The result was a defense that was almost impossible to break through unless the attack was overwhelmingly powerful. Jim attempted to separate the two fighters by generating powerful wind gusts enhanced with ki, hoping to blow Bota-Mo off Magetta's shoulders. But the attack had no effect. The gusts struck Bota-Mo's body and simply dispersed, as if their force had been completely nullified. In response, Bota-Mo opened his mouth and fired a barrage of ki blasts toward Jim. However, the bird-like warrior was flying far above the battlefield, and his speed made it nearly impossible for Bota-Mo's attacks to connect. Realizing that his long-range attacks were now ineffective against the Bota-Magetta combination, Jim quickly changed his objective. Instead of targeting Magetta and Bota-Mo, he redirected his assault toward the wounded Hit who was still being healed by Dr. Rota nearby. Rubalt remained behind to keep Magetta occupied. The bird is flying away, Bota-Mo said proudly. Looks like he finally gave up. Meanwhile, Magetta continued exchanging heavy blows with Rubalt. We do not give up so easily, Rubalt replied as he stepped back from the clash. You should check your backline. The bird is going after Master Rota, Bota-Mo shouted. We have to protect him, Magetta. The Metal Man responded with a loud metallic rumble and prepared to disengage from Rubalt. But the leader of Universe 10 wasn't about to let them live so easily. Planning to ignore me? Rubalt said with a grin. I might not be able to hurt both of you, but I can certainly stop you. With a surge of ki, Rubalt materialized an advanced weapon, a large energy cannon which he immediately aimed at the retreating fighters. Magetta was moving away, but his massive body made him slower than most warriors of his power level. Rubalt charged the weapon to maximum output and fired it. Botamo noticed a glowing red sphere of energy rapidly approaching from behind. However, he remained completely confident. If it were just a normal ki blast, their defense would easily absorb it, and he would have been right if it had been a normal attack. In a war zone, Rubalt muttered quietly, "Turning your back on your enemy is never a good idea." The projectile struck Magetta's back, but instead of exploding, the red sphere instantly transformed into a net of energy that wrapped tightly around both Magetta and Botamo. The two fighters were trapped. They struggled to break free, but the energy net refused to budge. Magetta's massive weight and size only made the situation worse, leaving him pinned to the ground. Rubalt approached the restrained warriors with a satisfied smile. "Two birds with one shot," he said. "Combining your abilities really backfired on both of you." He grabbed one of the glowing energy strands of the net and attempted to drag the trapped fighters toward the edge of the arena. "Now, let's throw both of you out." But the moment he tried to move them, Rubalt froze. Magetta was far heavier than he expected. You are so heavy," Rubalt groaned, straining under the weight. Realizing he is increasing his weight with ki, he sighed. "Fine, I'll just drag you slowly instead." Inside the net, Magetta let out a series of metallic sounds as he struggled. Botamo understood immediately. "Are you sure?" he asked. Magetta responded with another determined rumble. "All right," Botamo said. "I will leave it to you, my friend." Concentrating his energy, Botamo activated another technique he had learned during training. His body suddenly began shrinking. Within seconds, the large bear warrior reduced himself to a tiny size and slipped through a small opening in the net, escaping the trap entirely. Rubalt realized what happened too late. He watched in disbelief as the miniature Botamo sprinted across the battlefield toward his teammates. The leader of Universe 10 quickly aimed his cannon again and fired several energy projectiles at the escaping target. But Botamo's small size allowed him to dodge every shot. At that moment, Rubalt felt a sudden surge of power behind him. A massive wave of heat spread across the battlefield. Magetta had begun unleashing his true power. The energy net could no longer contain him. With a violent eruption of magma and plasma, the metal man burst free. His metallic body glowed a deep red, radiating extreme heat as molten energy flowed from the vents across his armor. Rubalt quickly retreated, shielding himself from the intense heat. "So that's it," he muttered. He was holding back to avoid harming his own teammate. Rubalt 10 switched weapons. In one hand, he materialized a massive chainsaw filled with raw energy. In the other, he formed a large shield with a glowing core embedded in its center. At the same time, Rubalt powered up, releasing godly ki that matched Magetta's rising power. "Your name is Magetta, right?" Rubalt said. "Now that the warm-up is over, let's fulfill our duties as defenders of our homes. Let's fight with everything we have in a blaze of fire and destruction." Magetta responded with a long metallic roar as lava erupted from the vents across his body. Both warriors were ready. Rubalt leaped high into the air, launching himself directly toward his opponent, and Magetta prepared to meet him head-on.